Courses, Google Analytics 201, starring George Weiner of Whole Whale. We're glad that you joined us. So two quick housekeeping items before we start. The first is that if you have any questions, please put them in the chat in the learning management system. George will answer questions from the chat after his presentation. The second housekeeping item is that the recording of this live course will be available later today, so that if there are any parts that you want to rewatch later, you can. So now to introduce our star for today. George Weiner is the founder and CEO of Whole Whale and the co-founder of powerpoetry.org. George founded Whole Whale in 2010 and has worked with over 50 nonprofits to increase cause awareness, multiply meaningful online engagement, and train teams to implement strategic use of data and technology. Thanks, George, for joining us, and over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Well, first off, before I get going, just making sure, I'm thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled that you're taking some time to go into a little bit deeper Google Analytics. You are super committed. I know the holidays are counting down. I know that there are probably tons of things to be on your plate, and I hope and I know you will get something out of this podcast. We've worked with over 60 different organizations to date at Whole Whale. We love the intersection of impact and technology. You know, I spent 7 years at DoSomething.org as the chief technology officer there, learned a ton of things, and it's just been amazing to see what nonprofits can do when they leverage Google Analytics. I'm not going to waste too much more time talking about myself or what we've done, because you know what, it's time for some action. And I'm going to share my screen. We're going to go through, and hopefully you heard, as Glenn said, hopefully you heard that you can ask questions in the chat. We have some representatives from Whole Whale actually with us, able to answer questions. And also, I'm not afraid to sort of pause as I'm going through and dive maybe a little bit deeper on some of my slides and topics, because look, if you don't understand the topics we're covering, we're not doing our job here. So you're going to walk away with some actionable insights. So your questions, and our team will either answer them on the spot, they'll interrupt me if it makes sense, or we'll save them for the end when we go into the Q&A section. But this is Finding Buried Treasure, Advanced Google Analytics for Nonprofit Marketers. And hopefully you did take our intro already with Laura and our team inside of TechSoup's awesome setup. But Laura, again, is on the line, as well as Meredith, our digital marketing whaler, who makes the magic happen with our online educational resources at Whole Whale. Again, we're tech and impact. We're at that intersection. We're a digital agency that leverages data and tech to increase the impact of nonprofits. Now, what are we up to today? We are going to be moving through the how and why of diving into Google Analytics a bit further. The advanced topics, though: assisted conversions, campaign tagging, calculated metrics, segments, Google Tag Manager, events, custom reports, and then we move into questions to actions as a framework for you to do more. I'm going to do a quick sound check, just make sure the team's ready before I wander off into this. I feel like we're doing pretty well. Glenn, give me a nod here. Sounds good. Thumbs up. Brilliant. And as we go in, look, there are tons of resources I'm going to reference. You can panic if you choose to. However, remember, it's being recorded. You can watch it again. And these are available inside of TechSoup's awesome resources section. So tons of articles, downloads that will actually do this on a very tactical level. So there's lots of follow-up and homework, which I know is it's a delightful word. Don't think of it as homework. Think of it as fun work. I'll work on that. I want to start with the why. And since this is advanced, I'm going to move directly into strategy. You have seen this funnel in some way, shape, or form. We're moving from aware, interested, engaged to committed for your organization. But it's critical that you define this for your organization as you make the case for web analytics, as you make the case for online digital engagement. Stakeholders internally, your executives internally, need to understand the value of every single web user, right? If I double traffic, are people happy about it? Well, if they aren't, it's because they don't understand this funnel. And they don't understand it because I'm making the assumption that part of your role is to make this case. So steal this graphic. Steal this exercise, go through and define the metrics as it relates to what you're doing. So here is Whole Whale, where we're talking about building the audience. We optimize for conversions. But on your side, you're creating content, telling good stories, campaigns, emails, All of these call to actions that lead to increased dollars, increased volunteers, increased organ donations, whatever it is, but you must define it. I'm going to teach you how to find the answers to critical questions in the framework, but this is a non-starter, right? If you are doing analytics work for people that don't understand the ROI, the return on investment of these things, look, you're paddling upstream, and it's unnecessary because you can use this tool and they will get it, probably. Here's the framework. This moves from a gather data, making sure that Google Analytics is installed properly and set up. Again, we had our 100-level course. Thanks, Laura, our impact whaler, for doing that, making sure you understand some of the basics and setup. I'm not going to go too far into that because we already went there. We're moving into the ask questions, the analysis of those questions inside of the data, for the finding of insights, the bright spots lead to the learnings or actions we want to take in our organization to improve it. So that is our framework. We're going to come back to it. We moved through it a lot, but that is the approach. I want to talk briefly also about this topic from Avinash Kaushik, the chief evangelist of Google Analytics, right? Why not cite Avinash? But his topic of squirrels versus ninjas. And I want you all to really internalize this. Reporting squirrels, he says, create reports. They data puke. They dump out information. They simply report what is, and they're one marginal step better than a dashboard or a spreadsheet. And analysis ninjas create actionable insights. They're spending time, as you can see here, at least quarterly, looking through not just the reporting, but the analysis, open-ended questioning, the capture and auditing of what you're doing. And here's just a back of napkin style that he says in terms of distribution of time on this. But if you are on this webinar, you are headed toward or already are an analysis ninja. You care about making this stuff matter rather than saying, hey, here are eye-boggling, boring amounts of data that I'm puking towards you. So for more on this, kaushik.net. He is awesome. It will keep you on your game. Love this as a resource. All right, goals. Laura talked about it in our 100-level course, making sure we're on the same page. Goals must be configured. They must be set up in Google Analytics. If you have not done this, half of what I'm about to show you is moot. Setting up goals means, for example, for Power Poetry, online team platform for young people to share their poetic works to increase literacy. We care about young people joining, young people adding poems, signing up, anything with a submit button. We are tracking inside of the admin section, adding the new goal and setting that up so that we can tell when something desirable happens out of the box. Google has no clue who you are or what you're doing and what matters on your site. You must define this. And it's important to take a pause here, because once that is defined, once you use the advanced tactics, once you start adopting the theory and practice, that is how Power Poetry, with a budget, I can tell you, of less than 150 grand a year, has become the largest. We found these types of insights and we took advantage of what was driving the real traffic, the real conversions, the addition of new poets to that site, and we did more of what worked on a shoestring. You can do tremendous things when you understand your data. All right. Excitement and theory. Let's talk advanced topics. Okay, as I wander through this, it's important to understand the navigating around. It's pretty straightforward. Obviously, this is going to change in some way, shape, or form, but they have indefinitely sort of kept the overall framework of audience, who they are, acquisition, where they came from, and behavior, what they did, as well as conversions in terms of layout. On that left sidebar, you're getting some variation on that. You see the audience and acquisition behavior. And then even on any sort of table-based layout that they're giving you, it's acquisition, and then the sessions and new users. So like how they're being acquired, as well as behavior, what they are doing. Is bundled together, and then the conversions, which always has a drop down. So you're going to be seeing different variations and flavors of this, and as you become more of an analytics ninja, you're going to be able to just off the top of your head be like, oh, I bet that type of question can be answered in that section. It's going to save you time to have this in there. Audience, acquisition, behavior, conversions, stuff. Where might I find these types of things? The conversions and attribution. First up on our menu, see the left sidebar, we have conversions. Just a reminder, okay, this is where we would find this. It's in the conversions section and in attribution. Okay, inside of here, assisted conversions. We are able to look, because of cookies, looking at a window that shows us not just the last click, but any click that led in the last rolling up to 90 days of that user's journey through your site. So for instance, if I'm looking at something like organic traffic, well, maybe there's not a lot of last click conversions, meaning that they Googled something like, I want to write a poem, today, and went to Power of Poetry and immediately created a poem on that exact session, but instead Googled something like, how do I write an ode poem? As an organic traffic ended up on the site, they're like, oh, isn't this interesting? That's my guide. This and come back to it later. Then actually, 2 weeks later, they come by typing in Power Poetry into the nav bar, and then they come back as a last click, right? They come back and they convert on that click. So we want to show the full user journey. This is number one with an exclamation mark mistake I see about just looking at goals. That's insane, okay? Just take a beat and realize, oh my gosh, am I looking at the assisting conversions? Am I truly understanding the value of my social media work? Comes to SEO? Or am I just falling for the last click conversion fallacy, thinking that people are marrying you on the first date? And if they do, that's weird. Attribution modeling, a little bit more advanced, dialing in a bit more. We don't have to panic that much about it, but I want you to understand, because I'm using words like last click interaction, we can actually dial in and optimize and analyze for any one of these types of things. So maybe your type of business is totally obsessed with the first interaction, or the last click before that, or position-based, or time decay, or even balance of linear. So we just see assisted conversions. We can balance it so that we wait and understand any one of these pieces business we have. For, I say 90% of you, just get started with the assisted conversions. Don't pound your head on this too hard, but know that this does exist. But if you are, for example, spending a ton of money on AdWords or something like that, you may specifically just really care about, wait a minute, why are we paying all these dollars? I want to see where these data are. The model will lay out with last interaction and time decay, and you'll be able to see inside of here with the drop down. And play with and understand some of your social media side metrics. And then is here or zero, but if paid search is that you can assign dollar values to tin, any, and all of these. But a lot of times this begins to play out a lot more, especially if you're spending lots of dollars to see where the value is landing with the allocation of whether or not these dollars are worth it. Okay, things to remember. Look, some of these things are, not without error. Look, 90 days, you may say to yourself, well, wait a minute, my cycle time for sales is like 12 months. How is this going to help? Inaction, some data better than zero data when it comes to this. So know what the limitations are, accept them, work within those boundaries, communicate it to the folks that need to. The multi-channel funnels report have a lag. So if you are really on top of things and you are pressing refresh on your daily analytics and saying, why aren't these numbers here? Just note it takes a couple days. And in general, remember we have that 24-hour window on any data. So yesterday's data is not set until everyone on our planet has gone to sleep and given some time to go to your website. I joke, but keep in mind, because I'm specifically speaking to the people that are taking an advanced Google Analytics course, so put an asterisk there. Okay, campaign URLs. Hopefully you are. This is an example. You can build campaign URLs and shove data into Google Analytics by creating these campaign source, medium, and name, and overwrite that. And here's an example of the whole whale assisted conversions article that we have. Being tagged based on something, maybe we send in an email to people, campaign medium pitch. So I just sent maybe Glenn, I'm trying to sell him on something like, hey, Glenn, go buy my widgets. And specifically is clicking on it. And I'll be able to tell that. Or if I'm advertising, or if I'm putting stuff on a billboard, and we can route things through and overwrite that URL with a bit.ly or some other redirect. But we're passing in information, and it's important to know that you're overwriting that information. Now, if you're doing this not just a few, but a few thousand times, we have built, to my knowledge, the only spreadsheet UTM builder which will let you roll this out on one of our resources, so you can do this at bulk and keep track of it. Now, this campaign information, it's important to find it. We are inside of acquisition, right, where we are acquiring people. We can go into all campaigns and then look and exactly see, like, oh, cool, here is our email campaign. Here is from search. Here is Facebook webinar follow-up. And we have tagged all of these. We can save the report. In the top right, obviously, the time frame always available that we can do this for. And inside of customization, we can create custom alerts. So, for instance, if something drops below, 50% overall traffic, I can say, wait a minute, it looks like the campaigns team isn't doing anything. Wait a minute, it looks like we're not sending out our email. And suddenly start to use Google Analytics as the database of record for all of our web digital communication activities, putting these alerts in. I have tons of alerts that go off, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, so-and-so is not doing their job. Well, obviously, Meredith and Laura are always doing their jobs, but I can put these alerts in, and especially if you're managing massive teams, and in your mind, you're like, how do I keep track of all this? You can set this up automatically. So be creative. Think about how that works. Okay, feel free to drop questions inside of the chat. There is so much more that I love going into when it comes to campaign tagging. Side note, one of the coolest campaign tag URLs we did, I can't release the client name, but they were spending a ton of dollars on media platforms, and they wanted to know, since they were targeting based on political interest, Democrat and visitors to their site, we were able to add those tags and view the different behaviors, articles, and interests of the two different political spheres. Now, some of you may be saying, oh my God, that's great. Some of you may be overlooking it, but cool stuff. Okay. Calculated metrics. Here we go. These are user-defined metrics. We can combine existing metrics just in case your goals or sessions or users are not sensitive enough to what you're trying to get at, or if you feel like you have to export data and then run your own sort of algos on it and calculations on it. Note, asterisk, still in beta. Frankly, most of Google Analytics is always in this sort of beta flux, but they seem to be keeping it. Right now, we get 5 per view. So, for example, we could get total donations of A plus B. So you have multiple goals. You can put those together. You can get donation rate over users. So A plus B divided by users. So you can use goals as variables inside of here and put those in. Those are something that you'll have to throw together in a custom dash or a report in order to see. It won't be native inside, very easily found, but totally doable and can potentially save you some work. Name, external name, how metrics appear in GA. Here's how you edit them. The formatting type you can control. Here you can see the actual formula using the variables. And finally, you can create your own formula down here. And they have some great predefined pieces like that. Again, could be super useful for 5% of you being like, oh, that's how we do the thing. I mentioned segments. Segments are so underutilized. Segments will be the best insight. Segments will, more often than not, be the way that you find the right answer to the question you're looking for. Segments are awesome. Pause for effect. Wait a minute, I wasn't supposed to read that out loud. Okay, segments. Inside of here, in the top level, you can see you can add a segment. Inside of that, you can set different conditions for it. So, for example, if it's the campaign, going back to that campaign, and I want to say, oh, okay, contains this or that, contains email, or contains some type of ad that I'm running in that name. I want to see how that's specifically performing on the site. It's like putting on your sunglasses, putting on your rose-colored sunglasses, and taking a look at the whole environment inside of Google Analytics and wandering around the content, acquisition, and behavior segments, and then seeing what's going on. Segments are incredibly powerful. You can do it also by any other sort of dimension that you can think of inside of there. All right, segments, awesome. More advanced things that I all but guarantee you are probably not doing. Okay, inside of here, we can actually set up a segment for educational institutions. So, for instance, let's say you care about reaching colleges. Okay, I'm reading, I'm trying to do specific outreach around maybe domestic violence or relationship health in colleges. Well, you can create a segment, and we have resources on how to do it that will show you the actual schools based on network activities. So this is basically the network name. If you can see down here to the bottom side here, we get the service provider. And because educational institutions don't guard their user safety as well as maybe they should, they release that information. So I can tell NYU versus Columbia and see how the performance is doing. Same thing with governments. There are ways of filtering network traffic for some of you trying to reach our elected officials. this may be setting off holy cow, I can do this type of flags. And there are other clever ways of doing this with press and rich users and any target demographics that we're after. We can create these segments. So segments are awesome sauce. In conclusion, Google Tag Manager. All right. So much you can do with Google Tag Manager, and it is such an elegant solution to what was really becoming just gross code bloat. Just entering every single one of these tags, right? We're entering our AdWords tag, our affiliate tag, our Facebook pixel, our, fill in the blank, whatever, plus on top of our analytics, all just sort of killing our page load time, frankly, because they're all battling with those JavaScript errors. So I'm talking to the geeks in the room anyway. This is worth the price of entry. If you feel like, oh, I've been dragging my feet on it because I feel like it was in, beta for a long time, it is here to stay. We have met with the Google folks a number of times. We kicked the tires. It has been fully implemented, and it is great version control for this type of tracking code. Highly flexible. Basically, a tag is the insertion of code. There's some prefab ones, there's some custom ones that you can do, and the trigger is when and where to fire it, so when to set off the code. It's got testing, again, versioning. It's excellent stuff for setting it up. We have a live look in to how some of these are being set. We have our 15-second visit event. We have an add this tracking code. We have a click to tweet tracking code. We have GA tracking. We have our LinkedIn insight, and so on and so forth. They're all nicely bundled in here into asynchronous loads so that we're not affecting the page load of our site. Google Tag Manager is super awesome. What else, right? Well, inside of goals versus events, because I'm just talking about events here. Goals are incredibly important. We get a max of 20 of them. So after a certain point, we're like, wait a minute, how do I track this extra thing? It's not quite a goal, but I really do care about X or Y. That's when events step in. They really do max out at lots of events. Outbound referrals are some we really love. So any sort of outbound click on your site, let's say you're referring people to the CDC, and that's a huge win, or you're referring them to a third-party HIV screening zip code search tool, and you want to know how many times that happens because that's part of your outcomes. Great, you can track that. You can save that. Scroll depth on super long pages that are parallax scrolling because your designer couldn't help themselves. Look, you can measure that as well. They made it 50%, 75% down the site. And the 15-second timer we love because it gives you true bounce. So on any given page, you remember from what Laura taught us that this actually matters for tracking, setting the timer for 15 seconds. If somebody leaves, it actually says, oh, they spent 15 seconds versus less than that. And all this can be configured. Some of these, there are definitely resources on how to do it, but let that be one of those things that's in your back pocket. Now know that if it is clicked, it can be tracked with events. You find events inside of behavior. Bonus points if you had that in the background. Where do I find it? Behavior, what people are doing. We can go in the overview of events and making sure you tag them properly with the category, action, and label. Makes sense. As you are setting it up, I really encourage you to wander through there and seeing how those data are being pulled together, making sure that you have your macro and then child categories labeled properly so that when you do the analysis, it comes up logically for you. Event tracking nuances. Okay, I'm going to go through this. Hopefully this makes sense to you. But with 300 different sessions, you have, let's say, for instance, YouTube videos being tracked. You playing at home, how many total events do you end up getting? How many unique events? Inside of this game, hopefully this makes sense. You're having the unique event with only one per. So let's say you watch that video 30 times as a user session, you're one unique event, which is why you can have total events be higher than unique events. Good thing to note. Custom reports. We could go back and forth on that, but Laura is your expert, ready and waiting to answer those questions. Custom reports. Okay, this is where we really are able to dig in a lot deeper and put together our own, any sort of combination of dimension, source, medium, and users breakdown as we may need it. Awesome use of this is sort of getting rid of the terrible Excel sheets I sometimes see people doing exporting. Usually you can actually create this in custom reports. Yes, there are plugins. Yes, you can export data pretty elegantly into giant spreadsheets through Google Spreadsheets, but I would encourage you to create a custom report first and see if you can't do it inside of the platform, if at all possible. One of my favorite custom reports is time of day. Yes, there are these new time of day views in the overview section inside of the home area, but guess what? You can't really drill into it. I think time of day is the most underutilized bit of insight into your site. Nothing affects bounce rate like saying, wait a minute, did I just have a coffee or am I ready to go to bed? Take a look at this. You are going to learn so much about your bounce rate in comparison to your time of day, because guess what? Maybe people don't want to have a coffee at 11 p.m., but they're doing other things. You're going to find out I can't wait. I cannot wait for you to do this. All right, time of day. Go do it. All righty. Questions and answers. Here we go. We're going to go through the process of helping you get away from just being the reporting squirrel, moving into the analytics ninja, asking questions, analyzing it, insights, and act. And I'm going to use some examples. To start, though, what are people doing on our site is a terrible question, like really bad. I can answer it for you right now. They leave on the weekends. They come back during the week. They come from major cities. Surprise. There's 4 major traffic sources. They're bouncing on your home. Look, you get it. You're not finding insights with bad questions. So get it throw out the window. There's no such thing as bad. There is such things as bad questions. Broad ones are bad. Remember your funnel's goal. Hopefully questions are related to saying, wait a minute, what are bringing people in? What are making them most interested? How are they getting engaged? What's making them convert? And we're going to Google Analytics for our answers. So, all right, here are 7 good questions. I'll get through most of them. I'm really excited about your questions, though. So keep in your mind. We'll do our best to answer them. And I'll wander through these right now. First, how is organic traffic year over year? Why year over year? Well, this is a good opportunity to look at organic traffic, which is people searching in, maybe related to search engine optimization, SEO efforts, and our content creation. Nuances here, are we growing? Are we flat? Are we declining? How was the month versus month last year? Oh my God, if you don't do the compare to past, I will find you and I will give you a data shaming. I will dress you down, as they say. Look, darn clear that when you compare December to November, November is going to be higher. It's a holiday month. Seasonality affects things. However, you want to see month versus month last year or some time period there. And inside of here, we do compare range custom, and then we can compare it to the previous time in the past year. So make sure you are measuring apples to apples, please. And then we can look at our organic search and compare. So in this case, for Power Poetry's data, in this time period, look, it dropped 4.5%. That is bad. A drop in organic traffic is inexcusable. Where we come from, where you should be growing and setting targets at least 10 to 20% growth year over year. So if you see that that's off, there's a problem. What's going on? What's the action? Okay, maybe we have some SEO issues. Well, we set up our Google Search Console connected to Google Analytics. We can explore keywords that are working or declining that we lost. We can learn more about SEO, content marketing, or hire a firm, because guess what? That trend is not going to get better on its own. And then we can find out which queries are bringing in things and do more about it. Next question up. Where's our front door? I love this. So AKA, where are people most landing? Where are most people landing on our site as their first page? Our front door. Think old school Main Street. All right, here's the shop window. They're obviously coming through the front door to go into our, into our nice grocery store and go through things. But I want you to think for a second. Where is your front door on your website? Oh, obviously that's the homepage. I want you to play a quick game with me. PowerPoetry.org's data is sitting right in front of you right now. There's the homepage. There's a landing page. I'm inside of the behavior section in my navigation under landing. And here it is. What % of people of that traffic, PowerPoetry gets, I'll give you some off the napkin here, 200,000 thereabouts sessions a month coming in through various sources. What % of the landing page in this do you think is going to be hitting the home page? Playing at home, you're like, all right, he's making a big deal. I bet it's 50-50 or maybe 80-20. Here are the data. How many of you were guessing in your mind less than 5%? I'm willing to bet few. I encourage you to play this game at home. I encourage you to go and do this with your team. And this is going to help you now make the incredible point that your front door is probably some landing page that hasn't been touched in 2 years. And that's the handshake. That's the introduction that you're making to so many new people learning about your organization. You want an action. You probably spent 90% of your design budget during the last redesign on that homepage. Yet the actual inverse is true. I'm getting like really excited about this because I see it so much. creating this game for your organization, saying, hey, what percent do you think is happening? And then explore where your real front door is. Say, all right, are we telling our story? Are we bringing people in? Is there a high bounce rate? So find that front door, do more with it. If you Google front door disease, we have an article about it. I didn't know that there was a door syndrome prior. I apologize to them, but that's the name we did. And you can send this article to your organization to have that conversation a bit more and have some fun with it. Generation likes us. Are we AARP friendly? Here's Power Poetry's data. And we actually have, once you configure it and set it up in Google Analytics and allow it, and also, just so you know, put up the legal disclaimer on your privacy policy, letting people know that you're using cookies and demographic data. Again, part of our resources that we will send you. I want to be doing the right things with regard to your policy, but you can track this 18 to 24, 25 to 35, and we get that we want for Power Poetry. It is a teen poetry power site. Now, if I saw this inverse and I saw goal conversion rates disproportionately down for 18 to 24 and actually really high up for 55 to 64, that might lead me to believe that maybe I have the wrong people writing our content. There is some disconnect with the marketing we're doing. It can lead to a number of insights, especially if we're trying to reach different audiences with different types of topics. So again, we want to upgrade to Universal Analytics. Technically, it works for old school analytics, but for gosh sakes, if you're listening to this, you should be using Universal Analytics. And then you get these beautiful age and demographic information bits. I think the age and gender are the most useful. Yes, they should have an other. You're welcome to petition Google on this. But for now, we are a binary analytics crew for Google Analytics. Next up, find what's working, do more of it. Segments, you can actually, once you've updated that tracking code, you can create the segment for male or female, or for example, males under 34, and we want to see the young men of our website. We can add that segment and view the entire segment that way. Yes, this is based on sampled data. Yes, you'll have issues if your sample size is too small. However, it is still accurate enough to I think glean insights from it if you're looking at a large enough sample size. But if you are looking in the low digits, under 1,000, grain of salt on it, of course, because it is sample data, and Google will always let you know in that top right or some sort of alert that this is based on X% of users or how many people are involved. So keep that in mind when you are building those segments. Next up, are we reaching decision makers? Okay, who are our decision makers? Okay, educational institutions. So this example with National Aphasia Association, they actually care about reaching institutions and making sure they're aware of aphasia as a not just a type of disorder that is not thought down upon and more accessible to these institutions, making sure they're accessing your content. You can actually see the behavior and how people are doing by university. And if you are looking at a Stanford versus NYU, you can actually see, let's say we had our field agents going out there, how they're doing, how they're reporting back. Very flexible. Okay, is mobile a friend or foe? Basically, look, is your mobile accessible site actually accessible? There are constantly changes going on, and maybe you are the technician, the CTO, maybe you're not. Maybe you're on the comms team, marketing team, and you're like, I feel like we updated the site to mobile, but I don't feel like why we should. Look, it's sitting in your data. And guess what? If you bring this to your CTO, if you bring this to your tech team and say, hey, wait a minute, why is, for example, our bounce rate so far off on mobile versus desktop? Rule of thumb, thereabouts, 10% difference, I kind of expect. Anything over that, I begin to get a little suspicious between the mobile and desktop experience. People are a bit more single-minded and focused on task completion when they're on mobile, right? They're waiting in line. They're more likely doing micro visits. However, we want to pay attention to, wait a minute, is this an issue with a particular type of device? So we can actually go into mobile and devices. Look, we complain about not having, your technology team. They say like, hey, we don't have the budget to do all the user testing with all the different types of devices. How are we supposed to find? You've already done it. You've already done that testing. It's sitting in your data inside of audience. Mobile devices. We can see Samsung and LG are leading the pack in terms of bounce rate. I bet there may be something off on that. Now we test those devices instead of the hundreds of devices out there that are going on, and operating systems as well that you can do. Looking inside of here, you can see. So you already have the user testing. You can bring that to very specific tasks to redo. All right, how are our channels working together? We've already talked about assisted conversions. I have the little reminder here, don't ask people to marry you on your first date. This is not a first date, great destination, ultra diamonds to go get the engagement ring, and it's because many steps need to go in. So we can see the overlap inside of conversions. We can see the overlap and way different channels play together and working to get to conversions and play with assisted conversions. I like looking at this first to say, all right, how are these all working together? Next up, since it's giving season, where are donors coming from? Where are our donors coming from? There are ways to answer this. A different one that we haven't maybe tackled, though, is goal flow inside of conversions. Once goals are set up, we can see a very nice visual sort of way that, all right, here's Google sending us through search, and here's Charity Navigator maybe throwing some things. Bing, just for the joke, sending us some traffic. And then we can actually get the drop-off that's going on from those pages. So that's sort of where they're coming from a sort of internal, like the calls coming from inside the house type of thing. We can see which channels swayed them. So I like this kind of view because it's a bit more narrative and see the most common paths. So direct being a common one, organic to direct being our top, or organic, meaning people search once for maybe how to write no poem, then again for where do I post my poem and end up back on your site. Referral direct, you get all of these in terms of communicating them to, oh, I get it, here are our channels working together. And I also like this because, as I just did, steal the way that I used English, that crazy little language that we all use, but sometimes forget when we look at data, to say, oh, here's an example of a human that searched for a thing, then came back because they loved us so much. That's another way of saying organic search to direct conversion to the lay peoples. All right, what about donors by location? Again, audience, geo, location. We can look up for donor activity by location. Don't be fooled just for the large metro areas. You understand city behavior. Pair this with census data if you want to see over and under indexing. Looking also at goal conversion rates, because this can vary quite a bit. And you're like, wait a minute, why is Boston not keeping up with New York? Is it because we don't have enough of a Boston accent? Sorry about that. How is our donation funnel doing as we move through the steps internally? Oh my gosh. Spend some time and make sure you have got a funnel set up. So I talked about goals, but you can have multiple steps on way to goal. And most of us do have this sort of like first page, enter information, second page, enter some more information, then finally make the donate. Keep in mind that you are losing people, guaranteed, with every click. You know what? You're losing as much as 90% of those people with every click. And you're like, I don't get it. Didn't they already go to our donate page? Don't they like us? Isn't that good enough for? No, it's not. It's absolutely not. People are super lazy, like beyond like what you think lazy, like multiply that by 50. That's how lazy people are. And this is the law of large numbers. So every single time you hear, hey, let's add another field to the form, you're like, well, that's going to hurt conversion by 10%. Every time we send them to a new page, well, that's going to hurt by at least 90%. And then you can show them the data. You can actually show them in this funnel conversion. And like, think about how hard, like, look at this. They sent 1,100 people to the donation page. How hard was it to convince 1,100 people saying, hey, I bet you got $100 burning a hole in your pocket right now. Come donate. And they lost 90% of them. Like, let that sit for a second. Now come back to the designer. Come back and make that case. Come back and say, hey, let's not create a form because, oh, people love us. People don't. No, they won't. Fewer pages, fewer fields, more dollars. That's as simple as I can make this. And just in case you are wondering, we have tested the crap out of it. So quick game, A versus B. And this is true for newsletters as well. We have one side versus the other, and we did this for National Stroke Association, trying to get more people subscribed. Tasty little form right here versus design, little layout better. And B wins by 25%. We used Optimizely on this. Yes, Google has an Optimize. You can use it. I just care that you're using a tool to do this. You're making sure you get the statistical significance in terms of making that decision and run those tests, because it makes a huge difference, right? If you can move the needle 25%, think about what that does to the budget. Think about, what if I told you right now, I'll give you an extra for every few hours you work, I'll give you 25% more on every hour you spend on marketing, every hour you spend on content. I'll add an extra person to your team. Gosh, it just makes too much sense not to do. So I don't think, I don't think there's any amount of busy that would mean you shouldn't do A/B testing and look at these data. I could continue, but it's Q&A time, and we are right at about 12:40, I believe. So let's see what the audience has for us, because I've been firing off words with stuff in it.
Yeah, thanks, George. This is awesome. First question is there a best practice on how to share the results of a marketing campaign, like a report or benefit dashboard?
Okay, so for dashboards, and I risk doing a live look-in, but we're doing it. We're going live. We're going to do it live. We go in, we get dashboards, and I love dashboards and I love custom reports, but I'd start with a dashboard, and we have the whole whale dashboards that are set up, and so we can go look at a bird's eye view or something to that effect, and inside of there we get something that we can customize. And I like using English for these, like how many people are visiting per day, or site total goal completions and bounce rate. And we've got dashboards for all manners of AdWords or social or pieces like that. So please start with a dashboard on that, customize it. Feel free to start with ours, steal it, and see what comes of it.
Okay, great. So the next question is about setting up seasonal campaigns. Are there some best practices on how to label the custom values of the URLs? How many is too many custom tracking URLs?
Okay, so I can't tell you how many is too many, because we work with major organizations that have literally thousands. What is not acceptable is non-standard URL creation, non-standard category, non-standard event, and source medium creations. Even something so much as going with uppercase and lowercase e for email is a stupid move, because inside of Google, those are two unique things. And so if you are basically creating a data soup and not standardizing things, that's the only time you're making a mistake. We literally created that UTM spreadsheet builder because we didn't see it being standardized. And so the UTM spreadsheet, dude, not bad. Not bad, whole whale, whoever you are. We've got this whole guide here ready to go through, and we actually also layer in a bit.ly code so that you can use the bit.ly API, shoves it in there, and automatically creates shortened URLs, because we know they look like garbage one by one, but we were dealing with thousands. We created it for a client once, and I was like, let's open source it. So there you go.
Okay, cool. So the next question, George, can you talk more about the rich user segment? How did you set that up, and is it possible to create a segment for, say, corporations? Okay, so user segmentation, as I heard you there, and how do we create? Oh, the rich. Okay, rich. Okay, so hold on. Laura, can you post that bit.ly rich GA? I think it's rich GA. Please be right. Yes. George is right for the win. All right, so we actually created this segment, and what we took is the top richest cities in America, and we created a remarketing audience for your Google Analytics. So again, I don't have that, and I did it really quickly. bit.ly/richga. We created it for you. And what that'll do is just give you, it's using a location as a proxy for wealth. It's an assumption, but you know what? It's not a bad one. It's an interesting approach, because then with that segment, you could do remarketing. You can do analysis of the behavior of how people are doing. You can look at goal conversions and give it a bump on that. And if you're dealing with high net worth individuals, this begins to maybe make a little bit more sense if you're using that type of donation strategy. Okay, cool. So next question is when defining funnels and tracking. Is there a best practice when tracking third-party partner websites? For example, the person who asked the question said, I have an event where the landing page is on my website, but registration and program details, etc., are on a third-party website. How do you deal with this? Okay, so
look, this happens a lot of times with donation pages. You're using some third party, you bounce them off to another thing, or using a splash that or something like that. The ideal case scenario is that you have the same Google Analytics tracking code, on both of those sites. Now, most decent, and I'm using the word decent deliberately because I know some providers that don't, will allow you to put your GA on that site, and then you can do cross-domain tracking. You can set up cross-domain tracking such that the cookie from your site of that user is passed to the next page of where you're going to, and you can track that user behavior to goal completion. The next best alternative to that is saying like, okay, look, we can't necessarily get them there, but what you can always do with these third parties is make sure the confirmation page ends up back on your site. So the sort of .org/thank you for signing up for this event, I can only get to that page if I filled out the form of the thing. Well, that can be set as conversion. The saddest of all options is setting up outbound click tracking. Click tracking, you remember looking at that behavior and saying, okay, clicks to convio.donate. This is a terrible URL. Sorry, not sorry, because Convio is not updating or Blackbaud's not updating their shit. That's an outbound click URL potentially.
Okay, cool. Next question is, how do you integrate Google Analytics in Google Tag Manager?
How do you integrate Google Analytics into Google Tag Manager? This is I'm not going to spend, as I said, too much time on walking you through the basics of there, but it is effectively a tag inside. Remember, tag is the code, triggers when it fires, and for all intents and purpose, inside of your GTM's got code. That code is going to replace the Google Analytics code. You shove that into as directed into that header workspace. And then once that code, the GTM code, Google Tag Manager code, is on your site, you take off the GA code, the Google Analytics code script. You shove that into here with that tracking inside of it. So let me just find this really quickly. You'd be creating new, create a new tag. Analytics, because there's no earthly reason why you'd want to click the classic. We click on universal, and then we have advanced settings, which I won't go too far into, and then triggering what page. Okay, I want it on all pages. Great, and then I shove that in. I'm going to create that because I don't want to create cruft in my system, but there you go.
Okay, cool. Also on subject.
Oh, sorry. Then you hit submit. Classic mistake is people have a bunch of things in their workspace and they don't push it live. Push it live.
Okay, cool. Is there a Google Tag Manager plugin for WordPress?
Is there a Google Tag Manager plugin for WordPress? Now, I will say two things. One, yes, there is. Two, don't use it. Stop adding plugins to your WordPress configuration. This is something that you want to get directly in there. Every plugin you do hurts your load time and is unnecessary, in my opinion. So, talk to your developers, talk to your doctor. Results may vary, but in my estimate, please just put that into the core code and don't jam it up with another freaking plugin that's going to bloat your code base.
All right, don't create another freaking plugin. So
no extra freaking plugin. You're advanced users now, damn it.
Okay, cool. So next question for you is, what are some best practices for getting clean data? Like, what filters should all organizations add?
Oh boy, Laura, you are actually our resident expert on that, and we have got a ton of these sort of like best housekeeping things. One really important, there's a couple of really important ones. I'll start with the PII, the personally identifiable information filter that we talk about creating. We've actually created it. Laura's going to post a little bit about it. Is making sure that email and personally identifiable information doesn't end up being shoved into Google Analytics, thus invalidating your data, meaning that you are in violation of Google Analytics terms of use, right? So if you're shoving in an email into that URL and into your data, you're hurting the internet. And you risk even far more, not just obviously the safety of your users, but obviously losing your data. So we have a scrubber, a PII scrubber, we call it. The next one is filtering out bots. You don't really care what robots are doing on your site, so filter them out, and that's an easy click you can do inside of the admin section.
Okay, cool. Let's see, sorry, I forget if have you already covered, can you talk more about tracking forms in Google Tag Manager?
Can you talk more about tracking forms? Oh,
Yes.
tracking for like a form on a website?
Yeah.
Inside of Google Tag Manager. Okay, so that is a situation where you're going to want to be creating a event. So I like saying, so for that form, on submit, and making sure that if someone has clicked that, you know that someone's clicked that, or you're using a funnel URL conversion. So it's either being, if you're talking about Google Tag Manager, this is saying like, all right, here's a click to tweet, or it's like a click on that button, and you're creating, that is the unique tracking piece. I don't have the time to really sort of like wander through the exact click on that, but anything that you can imagine being clicked on can be created as a tag inside of Google Tag Manager. Now, if it's a form and it's a multi-step form and it's used URL, not an AJAX loading, you can use that goal, the goals section, and go through goals and create a funnel by funnel. So here's, as I click that, you can say, all right, custom, continue. And this would be funnel with lots of L's. Destination. So once we set destination, so like that thanks dot, we can do funnel onsies, and this will be step page, step one, add another step. Two. All right, you can say your next question if we've got one while I just play around and show you this. What do we have on the old questions? Yeah, so custom HTML lets you put in a custom tag, and Laura can add more links to any sort of other sort of, I'll show you click to tweet, for example. Inside of here, here's the action it's looking for and the label. So it's looking for an event that we've already set up, or we set up that event and the variable that it's looking for, and then set the triggering.
Okay, great. George, can you show us a step-by-step example of setting up a goal based on an event?
Step-by-step setting up a goal based on event. Oh boy, I love the live challenges. I'm nervous because, you know, does that. Okay, so based on an event, what do we have in the old setup here that would do this? Podcast downloads. There's an event. Okay. So here's one that's already been created. Again, we went to custom inside of here as a custom event. Goal description, event, right? Before you saw me I hit destination / thanks. I'm gonna juice my screen a little bit here. You all. And in this case, I say event. Now this is where those labels make a whole big deal of difference. All right, what is the category? Category equal to action equal to, oh, action, okay, regular, okay. Here's the label. Anything with a .mp3, so this is a dynamic one because we had different categories and actions in there, but we said, oh, anything that has MP3 in it, say, is an MP3 for our podcast downloads, and that's how we track it. And then always go with the verify this goal to see if it's actually working. And that goes for any goal that you're setting up. You can use, so you verify this goal. The one I really like to use actually is going into real time. And actually do the thing, right? Go and click on it and see if that goal shows up. And we can see events. Did I set it up properly? Well, did it show up? Asterisk on that, make sure that you're not filtering out your own domain, which you should be doing. Oh, sorry, not your own domain. Make sure you're filtering out your own IP of your organization. So filter that out from your own traffic so you're not creating cuffs. So having an extra test or dev, no manner of filters on it whatsoever would be where you'd want to do that.
Okay, awesome. So we're getting close to the end of time. One question that we have that you've talked about different things throughout your talk, but I was wondering if you could wrap up with what are 3 of the most common mistakes you see when analyzing data from Google Analytics?
All right, so what are the 3 most common mistakes I see inside of Google Analytics? The first one is not fully understanding time on site. and full like bounce rate and users of your site. I see that misconception a lot of times and misreading that in terms of data. And that we talked about that in the 100 level, but that's a common one. The next I see not filtering out junk traffic. That makes me super sad, right? You just got the sort of myopic focus on junk traffic. So understanding those sources, not filtering those out. And the final one is the sad one, is just like not having goals and events properly configured for your site, assuming that some developer, the last firm that reset your site, obviously went through and did all the necessary work on this. I have yet to find a Google Analytics account that I, walk in the door and be like, please set up to date with what we're doing. Because guess what? You create that new form, you create that new campaign, that new initiative. Well, guess what? How are you going to analyze what you haven't tracked? So those are 3 big ones, I'd say.
Okay, great. Awesome. So if, George, if you can turn off your screen share, and let's give you a couple of minutes for any closing thoughts or things for our students to kind of think about going forward.
Sure. So I heard you present, say right there really quickly, I would love to, the final little thoughts and takeaways. Is that all right, Glenn?
Yeah, go for it.
Brilliant. I promise to take way too long and make you panic. Does that sound reasonable? Numbers are people too. Look, numbers are people too. When I say this, I mean that there are different ways of presenting data. You all are probably getting excited by the direct numbers because you understand what they mean. So when you walk back into the office and say, hey, we got 315 newsletter signups, isn't that great? That's about 10 and a half per day. People's eyes glaze over. But if you roll in and you say 315 people signed up to hear more from us, this should lead to 31 new donors in the next 6 months. You're going to get a different reception. So think about the way you phrase, especially the numbers coming out of Google Analytics, so that people's eyes don't glaze over, so that they're more willing to take action and tie it to the offline action. Data distribution is key. Right now, we may have a lot of heroes, a lot of data heroes on the phone, people that are the sole one and onlys, looking at the numbers, understanding what needs to be, and then communicating it to the all. You end up in the red zone, though, if you do this for too long and too much. Your job is not gatekeeper, but it is more one of allowing the distribution, education, capacity building in your team. Share this exact presentation. It's exactly why TechSoup exists. It's why we want more people to get access. And by the way, do it as view only. They won't be able to edit and break things. Give them a sample way, because you need to give more people access and understanding to data in order to get the most from it possible. Finally, look, I want you to be ninja side of squirrel. I understand that you have to do both. You have to be a ninja squirrel. That's fine. Think about the process. Adopt this asking questions. Make it fun. Bring it to your team. Say, hey, Wine and Analytics Thursdays. I think Whole actually does this, where you make it fun, people bring questions, and you go and analytics side. Remember the 1090 rule from Avinash Kaushik and his 1090 rule, but he talks about saying that the cost of your analytics tool or vendor or whatever professional service is $10 to the required investment of people, the $90 you should be spending on the humans doing the work. It's the people. It is the process inside that you're adopting and making sure that people have the data they need for the job they're doing. That must be made, right? If you're not investing in the people looking at the tool and you just have some expensive like fill in the blank thing running, even though Google Analytics is free, mind you, very much from it. Finally, I want you to bring this question back to your team. What do the right data say? And you get bonus points because I can give out bonus points. That's my authority. You get bonus points if somebody else at your organization in 2 months says this question to you. Your goal is to start it. Bring an empty chair to the meeting saying, hey, what do the data? They're joining us right now. What does that say? Hey, I know we're about to make this huge decision about X or Y programmatically or website content. What do the data say? You win. You win if you do that. Tons of resources that you can continue to, but it was amazing. I want to thank Glenn for tolerating my shenanigans. And for you all for taking the time. Glenn, I'll throw it back to you.
Thanks so much, George. That was awesome. And again, a shout out to George and the entire Whole Whale team, to Laura, to Meredith. Thank you to Susan here at TechSoup, who has been just answering everything like on the LMS. 2 quick reminders. One is all the recording of this material will be available in the course, so please come back to it first week if there are things that weren't clear to you please listen to it again and use that as a resource. The slides will also be in the course as well, so you'll have those as reference. And finally, if you scroll down, you'll see at the bottom of the course the survey. Your feedback is absolutely critical to us in continuing to improve textbook courses going into the future and making them more useful to you and to other nonprofits to increase the capacity of our sector. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us for Google Analytics 201. My name is Glenn Fajardo, and we hope to see you soon at another TechSoup course. Bye.